What you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur Exchange on the Mesh Podcast Network, a monthly conversation about startups and small business with ideas, tools, and advice to operate your business more effectively. On today's show, you like the idea of opening a retail store until you realize that renting space, buying inventory, upfitting your space, getting the word out, it all has to be paid for before you bring in any money. Today we'll be talking with Ruth and John Featherstone about their journey in opening the Rose Thrift and More, a thrift store here in Hickory, North Carolina, that also has a mission to help the local community. Also on today's show, the always exciting lightning round, and we'll share some interesting small businesses that you should be checking out. My name is Jeff Newville. I'm your co-host and director at the Manufacturing Solutions Center in Conover, North Carolina. I'm joined by my co-host, Gary Muller, who is Executive Dean of the Economic Development and Corporate Education Center, or something, at Catawba Valley Community College in Hickory, North Carolina. Gary, how are you doing?
Well, you're doing better with the title, so that's
well,
good.
I don't know if you're a center, if you're I don't know what to call you these days. You're always in flux.
We're growing, so that's the good thing.
Well, I hope that you're enjoying your summer.
I am. Of course, we just got back from skills. We were talking about that, and things went really well for our students in the college, so we're excited about our skills program. And I'm going to reach into where we're going to talk about different businesses at the end to say, and we had a great breakfast at Zach Cranford, one of our great partners for the college, at Main Chick Jam and Biscuits.
Well, aren't you just you're bearing the lead here? But okay, so that's fine. And for our listeners that might not have been listening last time, the Skills USA program is really an opportunity for community college and high school students to compete in various competitions, everything from entrepreneurship to welding to whatever.
Exactly, anywhere from automotive to welding. And of course, you've been a great partner for us with the Skills USA. Advising our entrepreneurship teams that have won gold and silver medals at the nationals, and so.
Well, I haven't done it in several years. I retired on top, I think.
Well, you did retire as the champ.
My gold medal.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So it's Olympic
That's smart,
season
actually.
too. It's Olympic season, so it all
fits together.
So, well, let us welcome our guests. We today with us we have Ruth and John Featherstone, who are the founders of the Rose Thrift and More. Ruth and John, how are you guys doing?
Great. We're doing great. Thank you for having us.
Okay, well, we're pleased you're here. We know that you came a long way to be here. We say that facetiously in that your store, I think, is maybe 2 blocks away from the
even Mesh, I can walk there.
The Mesh Central recording studio that we're in here. And the Rose and Thrift sells a wide variety of clothing, vintage clothing, antiques. What stuff do you guys have in the store these days?
We have all kinds of furniture. We have books, kids, things like toys, puzzles, games, vintage clothes. We have a huge vintage customer. So we're blessed with great donations from the community that bring in unique, rare clothing finds, and that's brought in a lot of people from Hickory and from outside of Hickory. And
you guys have tied your store to a nonprofit as well. You guys have done really good works in the community, and tell people a little bit about your backstory of what you were doing before you opened the Rose, and just sort of how the nonprofit piece fits in with the retail operation.
Well, we worked for a ministry here in Hickory called Cooperative Christian Ministries. We were there almost 10 years. And during that time, we were able to see what the community needs were. And John and I ran the thrift store for Cooperative Christian Ministries. At that point, they decided a little over a year ago that their vision had changed. And so they told us that there was no longer going to be a need for the retail establishment there. And when we were put in that position, we had people reach out to us and say that they would really like us to do a store, but we also knew that it needed to have a mission focus. And so we knew that during the time of probably over 20 years ago, I had a ministry called The Rose, and it was to reach out to orphans and widows in India. But what we found here in Catawba County while we were at the ministry is the kids aging out of foster care, orphans, widows, widowers, and shut-ins tend to be a group of people that are excluded a lot of times from our thoughts as far as the needs that they have and the services that they need. So when we were facing leaving CCM, we were put in a position to determine, God, what do you want us to do? And so that was what came to John and I, was that was the demographic that we were meant to reach out to. So that's what the mission is with the Rose, is we are basically targeting, looking for ways to help and support those groups of people.
So,
Fantastic.
So the store, you have a variety of things. You're not necessarily targeting those groups with your store. You're just using the proceeds from the store, the profits, I guess, to help support those groups.
That's correct. And awareness. We feel like our store is called the Rose, Thrift, and More. The ministry is called the Rose TLC. The TLC stands for Reaching Out, Serving Everyone Through Love and Communications. And we have found that communications is a part of the gap in the community, is communicating who has the need and where can they get the need met. And so we have a vision also to set up networking to where people can be connected to the person that can help them or the group that can help them.
Oh, super. Well, and thank you for what you guys are doing here in our community. I think that's great. From an organizational structure perspective, a lot of businesses might set up as an LLC or a partnership or sole proprietorship or corporation. You sort of have a unique situation. So how is your organization structured? You're a nonprofit or how are you guys structured?
We applied for nonprofit status in March of 2023, and that was so that we could be able to help philanthropically in the community. We had thought that it was going to take 6 months to, they said a year up to 2 years, because they are very backed up. And our letter came back, I guess, and
That's all you get.
and they had approved it. And our lawyer said that was, unheard of. So, and it was during tax season, so we took that as a sign from God.
That's
We were
exactly
supposed
right.
to be doing this. So once that began, we were able to receive help from some donors that were, wanting us to have that status in place.
And the store itself is under the nonprofit status. So it is a store that is strictly operating for the function of being able to take all of its proceeds and give back into the community.
Now, do you have paid staff that work for you?
We do currently have 2 paid staff, but just as the model that we served at CCM, most of CCM's help comes from volunteers, and we know that that's a part of another gift that we give to the community, is offering the opportunity for people to come volunteer. We have found through the years that a lot of widows and widowers, when they're faced with that situation, it really does help them to get out of their home and go feel like they're doing something to help someone else. And in our case, because a lot of the people that are donating to us are in the position of just becoming a newly widowed or widower, then when they're greeted by someone at the door that's serving with us that possibly has gone through that, they're able to identify with that hurt or that pain. And it kind of is a win-win for everybody.
Yep.
People are getting ministered to.
That's great. Now, you guys are rather humble in that the store that you set up with the Christian Cooperative Ministry was really a pretty darn impressive operation, and I think that you guys sort of took it from, I don't know what existed there before, but you made it an actual, very welcoming, very professionally run retail operation, and so kudos to you. So you sort of had to recreate that in a new location, a new site. So talk to us and our listeners a little bit about startup challenges that you guys faced. From don't know how difficult it was to secure the space and upfit the space, or what challenges did you run into to get things up and going?
Everything was, was a challenge, but for us, God met every challenge need that we had. It was kind of like just waiting in a way and seeing, well, how is this going to work out? What's going to happen? We had I guess, close to 10,000 square feet of product that we were moving across the street to our new building, which is at 108 South Center Street, Hickory, North Carolina, 28602. And,
Perfect.
So we were just moving across the street, but that was a daunting task to, one, have to get out by a deadline, and then to go through just the physical task of the movement of that much product into another space.
So I guess you were fortunate in that at least initially you had inventory that transferred from CCM to your new store.
Yes.
So it wasn't like you had to go out and secure a whole bunch of inventory to get started.
Yeah, that was a great advantage that we were given through CCM. We give them thanks for that, and that is not normal for someone starting a business. So we did have that as an advantage. It was also an obstacle trying to find the right size building for us, because also unique to us and our offering to the public of being a large store, we needed at least 10,000 square feet. And the building we found was 11,000 square feet. We did look at a couple of other buildings that were available, like grocery stores and large department stores that were left vacant, but the lease cost was not feasible, especially for a nonprofit. But where we ended up was perfect for us. We were able to get a longer lease, which made it an advantage for us. We didn't want to have to go through this again. So, what were you going to add?
I was just going to say, too, I think when you're starting a business or a ministry and you have a vision, I think waiting on finding the right person to work with you, because when you are leasing a space, you want to make sure that the person that you're leasing from has the same heart as you.
Absolutely.
And desires to work with you. And that definitely was something that we found with the gentleman that leased to us, is that he had a heart for the vision that we had and was willing to work with us to accommodate us in what the space needed, because we did have to make a lot of modifications in the space. And I think that's the other thing for somebody that's just starting something up, is to have the vision, to recognize that if the space has the overall framework of what you need, you might have to make modifications. And then you just have to take a moment and look at that space with the vision of what it can look like, not the way it looks when you walk in. Because the space that we took over had never been retail for many, many years. And
Decades.
Decades. So it was industrial, and it did not look like a space that you would naturally choose for retail. But we also knew that a lot of our customers love that quirky, unique look, and that we could make that space into something really special. So having that vision and that passion to turn something into something unique and special is what you were even referring to, Jeff, with what we did at CCM. We took a space that when we got it was really not in a lot of desirable retail opinion looking that great. And we turned it around and made it look like something that people would really want to come into.
That's where passion comes in.
That's where passion comes in. That's right. So
and we've known each other to some degree for a while, but refresh my memory. Did you guys, what sort of retail or fashion background do you guys have? Because your stores look very nice. I mean, it looks like someone knows what they're doing.
Well, I went to App and majored in public speaking. And then when I graduated, I moved to Atlanta and did sales. And then moved back, did sales here. And when my job went to complete commission, I went into just a retail store for an in-between job. With my recruitment background and sales background, they wanted to hire me to run a store, which was Pier 1. And that's where Ruth walked in. When I was running a Pier 1, we met. And later we married. There was a lot that happened in between that, including me hiring her. But I had never worked in a store, but my daddy raised me, whenever you do something, you do your very best. And I do have an eye for design, and that kind of runs in my family on my mom's side. And Ruth does too as well. And we wanted to do business together before our relationship grew, and God made the way for that to happen. And we were recruited to run a business, or to manage a store here in Hickory from Pier 1, and that's kind of where it continued after that. And so I never thought that I would ever work in a store. And I did want to add, too, with the nonprofit piece, when we were initially starting to consider and then decide to do this, I thought it was going to be simple. I thought it was going to be a cakewalk. And I had no idea about permits or taxes. And it's just been a huge learning curve for me that wasn't prepared for, but it's worked out and has been blessed. But it's been a huge learning curve.
So when you say those issues, I'm assuming that those became much more problematic for you when you opened the Rose and more as opposed to when you were at CCM or you're at Pier 1 where that other people dealt with those issues and now they're sort of in your face.
Yes, and there's not a handbook for people that do what we do and what you do, having started businesses and helping other people start businesses and launch ideas. So, when the fire marshal comes through and says, well, you have to have a sign out here in the parking lot, and I mean, literally, there's not a handbook that I would love to have had. Just informing us of what you need on the outside of your building, what you need on the inside of your building. Thank God for bookkeepers. Having a bookkeeper. If I didn't have a bookkeeper, I wouldn't probably be paying taxes that I didn't know I needed to pay. So
those pesky sales taxes will get you.
They do.
That's not
yes.
your money, guys.
That's
Remember
right.
that.
That's right.
Yeah.
We did go to CVCC, and I just can't thank you, Jeff, enough, and you for the support there, because we did immediately go to CVCC and we spoke with the lady there that is now helping with small business. And she was able to at least give us some framework. And she gave, we spent a couple hours with her one evening, and she did just go through some very preliminary, foundational things that we needed to consider as we were doing this. And that was a great starting point for us. And I would encourage every person that is considering doing a business to use that resource in our community, because it was a great way to start, and it was comforting. I think it is very scary to be put in the position where you're looking at your future and even the financial part of it, thinking, I'm about ready to step into something where I don't have the corporate world saying that you're going to have these insurances and you're going to have this income on a regular basis. You are really stepping into the ocean and having to trust. And having that support system from CVCC in our community was huge in helping us to feel some comfort.
Well, that feels good. We're glad when you had a good experience.
Yeah.
But and going to the financial side, that's a lot of times people have great ideas and all the great intentions, but they don't understand, like you were talking, all the things that you're learning for how.
Yes.
And every business is a little bit different too. So
Right.
having the resource of a small business center, of course, Jeff. And
When you say she, I'm betting you met with Suzanne.
Suzanne, I was going to say you met with Suzanne.
Director of the
Now,
Small
Chris
Business Center Network.
Reese, we have a great team of different people,
You do.
and they're passionate about
that's
it.
right.
Yes,
I know I
that's
use that
right.
word a couple of times, but it's real. I mean,
right.
they care about it. But you do need those resources,
You do.
whether it's at CVCC or somebody else. So, because again, most people don't have a financial background,
Well,
but
and
they
we didn't-
need support one way or another.
Yes, and we didn't have financial resources to really launch ourselves. So we had attempted, when we first met Jeff, I guess 12 years ago.
Yeah.
We were working on our own business at the time, and we had visited cotton manufacturers because that was in line with our business at the time, and still part of a later dream. But it did not happen, and we didn't really have the funds to kind of get it off the ground. And going to work where we did, we never thought that God, through us proving what He can do in establishing and growing a business, would bring in support from community. So if we hadn't had support of community, which I know a lot of your listeners are in our boat, or maybe they weren't and they did have savings to begin, but we were dependent on people helping us to be able to start, and without them, we wouldn't have been able to do that.
Yeah.
Well, I think one thing, a good point that I think you make is that when you're going through the startup, really doing it on your own is not the way to do it. Reaching out to the resources available in your community. Here in North Carolina, we're fortunate to have small business centers at each of our community college. If you're listening somewhere else in the country, there are often small business development centers that provide free counseling and assistance. There are resources out there that you really should take advantage of, and that they don't know all the answers, but they can help you with some of those foundational questions and provide some direction. And you also mentioned the support, recognizing you needed bookkeeping help. I mean, are there other resources that you found that, hey, this this is not something I'm comfortable with, or I just don't have the bandwidth to do all this sort of stuff? Is it, whether it be marketing or other areas? I mean, are there other resources that you guys had to identify or recognize that, hey, we need help here?
I'm an idea guy. That doesn't mean I'm full on delegation always. I will get my hands dirty, but I'm not handy. And it's helpful for.
I resemble that remark too. That I understand that completely.
I can use a hammer, but I won't put an anchor in a wall, or I'll take out your drywall. So I knew we both knew to enlist help.
You've proven this over time.
Right, I have. So Habitat for Humanity was instrumental in helping us move and also rebuild. So they built a lot of our glass cases, our shelving. We unfortunately had just completed a Girl Scout Gold Award project at our last location, and I was adamant that it would not be destroyed. So we had it completely rebuilt, identical to how she had done, but we did add an extra dressing room. So, knowing what we were weak in and where we needed help was key for us to be able to succeed. We also partnered with Knights of Columbus through the Catholic Church, which brought a lot of labor and also building help. And, I've also been able to have customers come in that have skills that we don't, or time that I don't have with doing graphic work, doing signage. We have been blessed to host Dewey's Bakery from Winston-Salem, known all over the country for their Moravian sugar cakes and cookies. And
I was going to ask about that.
Yeah.
I saw it on the sign.
Yes.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yes. So
Close to my heart.
Yeah.
In my stomach.
It's really good.
So she's helped us with marketing for that and for some of our events that we have done as fundraisers to support local nonprofits.
So I think many new businesses have the challenge with getting the message out there and marketing and branding to some degree. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like you guys sort of knew what you wanted to call it from things that you have done in the past. Right. But that's all well and good. But you have to get the community to identify it with that. So what sort of steps have you been taking to promote the Rose Thrift and more, and what sort of challenges have you seen with that?
Well, I think the Rose itself, just as a new business owner, making sure that your logo, making sure that really what you want people to see first is so important. So for us, the passion of the Rose and the picture of making and creating that rose to look exactly the way we wanted it to, because we knew this was the beginning. When you brand something, you don't want to change your brand a year after you've started. You want to make sure that the initial picture of what you're starting with is what you want to go with, because you're going to invest a lot of time and money into that. So finding that picture of what really creates the image of what you're wanting to communicate to the public when they see your business is really important. And then we partnered with Barger Printing, and they have been great here in our community to do our signage and create signs for us to use outside. And then Sign Systems was great to work with us to promote and create the signage literally on the building and on the street. So for us, we found you have that saying about a business without a sign.
Yes. Well, I can't take credit for that. When we were shopping for signage at our last location, I went to several different sign companies, and one that stuck out to me that I had a lot of our interior signs made at said a business without a sign is a sign of no business. And this was during a time where I was looking for grant money to come in so that we could build and have our sign made for the street. And those signs are thousands and thousands of dollars. And but selling the board of directors on why we needed that. And I tell you, as soon as we had the grant money from that came in, it was around $6,000 or $7,000 for that sign. But our traffic tripled within that year, and our sales, I'd say that year is when they doubled in annual revenue. Now, when we moved to our new location, and I know we only have so much time, but I'll be really quick on this with the signage. We had our signs made. The Rose Thrift and More, of course, is under the Rose TLC. So we have the big sign at the street, the Rose Thrift and More, and then on our building is Rose TLC. So it created confusion, and our traffic was just not. It was kind of crickets when we opened, and we thought we were going to be inundated, and So we realized we were having confusion with people coming in, wondering if we were a floral place. I had only formal and our one front window when we used to have several front windows. So people thought we were a prom store. So we did have to kind of go back to our printer and ask for some bright signage that are those color plast, kind of what you see with political signs on corners of streets. So we had some of those made that say what we have, that it's a big thrift store, and kind of books, media.
Red clothes,
Yeah.
vintage clothes. So our whole business is surrounded by these signs that when people are driving by, they now know this is what this establishment has in the
And
store.
that has
Well,
started
it
to
makes
make a
all
big
the sense
difference.
in the world. They
Yeah.
need to know
What
who
we
you
carry,
are, what you
who we are, and what we
Yes.
carry. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Facebook, Instagram, using social media is huge. And we also feel like the promoting of, like, we do a unique sale every week. And we learned even from CCM in the ministry aspect, we don't need to duplicate and be like somebody else. When you're starting a business, really take into consideration making it unique and special. What is different about your vision from everybody else's vision? And really focus on that, because that's what people need. They want to have new experiences.
Yes.
They don't need, if they're going to go to see the same thing at your store or in your business or eat the same food that they could get down the corner, they might just go down the corner then
right.
instead of going to your establishment.
I'm
So
pretty
you-
comfortable going to the place I've been going to down
going
the
to
corner.
it for 10 years. Yeah. So we feel like really when you're looking at your business, hone in on what are you going to do to make it unique and special to you? What is it that's going to make you stand out from the other businesses?
Well, I think that's very good advice, and that too often I think people come in and say, "Well, I'll just do it a little bit cheaper," and that's not a very good long-term strategy.
No.
And that if you're actually
Somebody can always go under.
yeah,
Yeah.
someone can always lower their prices, whether it be temporarily or whatever. But that's not a long-term plan for success.
That's right.
Unless you're
That's
Walmart,
right.
they can make it work.
That's
they got
right.
a little scale.
A little bit different. They have a
got a
little
little
bit
scale to that.
Yeah,
one.
exactly.
That's right.
So as far as operating the business on a daily basis, do you guys sort of divide and conquer? Have you sort of like assigned responsibilities, or is it what are the main issues that you worry about every day?
We still feel like we're very much in the first year. And I think, people say, give yourself a year when you start your business.
And officially you opened last spring of
August 29th.
of
Yeah,
it's
so not even a
2023.
year.
So it's not even been a year.
Yeah, it's not yet.
Not yet. But I think moving across the street, we already had close to 11,000 followers on Facebook and several on Instagram. That's why I said we thought we were going to be inundated. And I guess having 8 months from closing to reopening and rebranding, even though we were able, thankfully, to be able to keep our Facebook page and all of those followers, we were not being brought in lots of traffic. So we are somewhat dog paddling at times. We do have 2 employees. We would love to have a third and eventually a whole team. But even a third within this year we would like. We have around 40 plus volunteers. We do have a board of directors that govern our positions as well as the trajectory of the store and the ministry. So we depend on all of them to be able to do together to make the store run and the ministry run. We're currently really needing help with outreach and development to be able to interface with churches, civic groups, social groups, and just to even be able to reach out through email to people that are already supporting us. So we are very aware of our opportunities.
And in the day-to-day, too, we need volunteers. I mean, I think that's a huge part of our organizational vision, is even if we do get some more employees, which will be used in probably more of a professional sense in interfacing with the public and going out and doing things that we need to have done. We need those volunteers that can come in and help us process and just greet people in the store and enjoy the experience of meeting new people and sharing with them, maybe finding a treasure in that. So volunteers are a huge part of our day-to-day that we're still waiting on having those gaps filled in with that need. Johnson, our rules, I think this is another thing when you're looking at starting a business. If you're a husband and wife like John and I are, and I'm sure a lot of people that are couples that start businesses, it really does help to define what your roles are going to be within that business. And so we, luckily working at CCM, had a lot of definition given to the roles of what we are strong
How
in.
you wanted it to
Yeah, and
run.
how we wanted it to work. But I think even moving across the street, we're now not having the team that we had behind us at CCM and starting a new business. I'm sure anybody that looks at that, you need to recognize right up front, you are going to be having a lot more responsibility for a period of time until you get more help, whether it's employees or volunteers. You as the owners of that startup are going to have to
It's
do it all.
24/7.
Yeah,
Right.
it is. And you're going to have to do it all for a while. And you need to remain confident that you can. And you need to work through things and not look at, we don't look at things like mountains necessarily. We look at like opportunities to gain and face it together and work through it. And
I can see why you're successful. You guys are always optimistic and positive about.
that helps.
Well, in
It
front of
is.
a microphone for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as we sort of wind things down a little bit, are there other final thoughts or lessons that you would suggest to entrepreneurs that are thinking about starting their own business or their own retail business?
I told John about one that I feel really strongly about that we faced in this last year is don't listen to all the other voices of people telling you what you need to do and how quickly you need to do it, because it does take time. And I think gardens are a great analogy of that. You don't plant a seed and expect tomorrow that the flower is going to be blooming or the fruit's going to be on the vine.
Yeah.
And so John and I a lot of times have to say no to people saying, well, why don't you do this now or do it this way? Or why don't you add this into the business model? And it's like, we don't have enough staff. We don't have enough volunteers. We don't have enough time between us. You want to get a really strong foundation. And you want to make sure that you stay true to the vision that you feel for your business and the model that you feel. And maybe it'll hurt some people's feelings, and maybe you
But
might
you're the ones
lose-
living it.
You're the one that's living it, and you also don't want to be bribed somehow into taking money or resources from someone that wants to change your business model. You want to stay true to your model, and then let it build over time. Let it grow, like in the garden, over time, and don't take on too much.
And if you're looking for investors or partners, I think it's critical that your vision is clear, that you're able to write it down and make it plain as it says, that people are able to run with it with you and pick it up and carry it and digest it and be able to then share it with the community. So it's easier to do at times from a nonprofit perspective because we have a clear message of the why. And I think having your why is really important to the what. If you're having a business, that's your what. But why are you doing that business? Who is it going to help? Who is it going to serve? What hole is it going to fill in the community that's not already there? Because if you're filling a hole in the community, then you're pretty much guaranteed you're meeting a need that's not being met. So I think that's imperative that you know very clearly what your mission is, even if it's not a nonprofit. But if it's selling popcorn, like our friends here in Hickory are doing such a great job of, they have a clear message and it's meeting a need. There's not another popcorn place around.
I know that.
You guys, if you ever want to run a small business center, you'd probably be pretty good at that.
Exactly
you
right.
guys are hitting the right notes there.
Well,
so.
I think you were talking about, and I go back to when you started talking about with your lease and being careful and making sure you've got similar goals or
Yes.
similar traits of the people you're dealing with. It's certainly when you're talking about partners.
Absolutely.
Because when you're starting, everybody's got rose-colored glasses. When things get tough and you're working hard.
What you did there with the rose color?
I know, see.
That's right.
Didn't even think
Play
about
on
it.
words, yes.
Well, look, this has been great. We really appreciate you guys joining us today. You guys up for our lightning round today?
Absolutely.
All right. This month's lightning round is sponsored by Ned Ryerson Insurance. Whole life, auto, flood, home. Can't have enough insurance. Am I right, Gary?
Absolutely.
All right. Stay safe with Ned Ryerson Insurance. You should check him out on the internet. So we got some very quick questions,
Okay.
quick answers. You can answer individually. You can answer as a team. Hopefully we don't create any conflicts at home. But first question, what is your favorite vacation spot?
Mine is Hilton Head. I love Hilton Head. It's
a great
Love
place.
the beach. Just
Anywhere on the
love-
west coast of Florida.
All right.
Both good answers.
Do you have a favorite TV show or movie that you would recommend to people?
I love It's a Wonderful Life.
That's my favorite movie, yeah. Shine's a great movie if you're in for a good drama.
Okay. Yeah,
with David Hefcott, famous
we're gonna
pianist.
save It's a Wonderful Life till a little later in the year. It's a little
Yeah.
warm out there for that
That'll
right
be our
now.
Christmas edition.
Yeah, that's right. Would people characterize you as sweet, salty, or sour?
I definitely think sweet.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think they'd say I'm sweet. Yeah,
I think
I'm
you're
a
sweet.
sweet
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
It's
I-
good that
I
Ruth
would
says
agree.
you're sweet.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, that's right.
That's probably the most important one. All right. If you were an Olympic athlete, what sport would you compete in?
I would do track and field.
Gosh, I'd like to be able to say breakdancing, but that would probably make me break something. I don't know.
Is that a sport now? I don't even know.
It is. This is the first
Oh,
year.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now you said that.
Yeah.
I saw it.
And I think they're going to rotate it. It won't be in the next one.
Okay. Well, that's something to look forward to.
Yes.
The breakdancing competition.
So we thought it
this
was
year.
just his
yeah.
idea, but it's right. It is this year.
All right.
I forgot about that.
Last question.
Okay.
If you had one superpower, what would it be?
To heal people.
I don't. Goodness, there's so many. I don't know.
No, we've never had that.
All of my answers are self-serving, like flying or.
Well, that's
No,
what,
that's
how
what most
people
that's what
answer.
most people answer.
Yeah,
That's-
Ruth's just a lot nicer than most people got here. Yeah, flying's a good one.
Yeah.
No,
Flying
no,
is a good
no,
one.
It's
yeah.
fun.
Yeah, you could take people across the country much more quickly. That way. Anyway. All right. Well, look, we very much appreciate you guys joining us. If people want to find you, where should they be looking online?
At the Rose Thrift and More on Facebook, Instagram, and our link tree is also the Rose Thrift and More.
Okay. So everyone, get out there and look for the Rose Thrift and More, and we wish you guys continued success, much success, and appreciate you joining us. We always like to end the podcast by doing a little shout out to any small businesses. Do you guys have anything that you'd like to give a quick shout out to? Or you've mentioned several from from sign companies to others during the show today.
She had one.
Yeah, I mean, Barger Printing is one that really, the signs and just their heart to work with us, and really they helped us start up the business with just helping us with our business cards and all that. So I'm really thankful.
They're
for
wonderful.
them.
And then I would mention what's probably been mentioned before, but I mentioned this just for the uniqueness and the community aspect is the store called Bottega, Bottega. You can find them online. What I like about their store, as well as Vintage Blue, it's my favorite mid-century store in the area, and they ship all over the world, is they're unique. They're totally different. Bottega brings an artist, so it's a community aspect, and it's a lot of consigned art, and you never know what you're going to see. And then Vintage Blue is mid-century pieces that you don't see in stores today. So,
Okay. Check them out. All right. And Gary, who are you going to give a shout out to today?
I'm going to give a shout out to a city. How's that? I went to go see my youngest daughter, who's in New York City, how she grew up in Troutman and Mooresville and ended up in New York City and loves it. But I went up to see her, and of course she knows her dad loves food and sweets, so she took me to every bakery, I think, in New York City. But what I noticed when I went to New York, because I've never really been there a lot, all the different small businesses and entrepreneurs. I mean, that's really, they are. They don't have grocery stores. That's where their Walmart was. They don't have them. They have little independent, I guess, dealers or shop owners. And so I just saw all these different great businesses. I mean, I think about when my daughter went to New York 3 years ago, and I think about the rent. Her first apartment was 110 square feet.
Wow.
Literally 10 by 11. Now she's gotten up to 400 square feet. Yeah. But I mean, I really, you got the food trucks, but I saw all these different businesses that are working hard to be successful, all types.
So you're suggesting that our listeners visit this exotic city. What do you call it again?
We call it New York City.
New York City. Okay, just in case you missed that. All right.
Yes.
Okay. So the entrepreneurs and small businesses of New York.
Yeah. Well, and all the different. You go up and down the streets, and there are just so many different restaurants and bakeries and different things. And of course, that's me. That's my favorite food.
Pseudo food.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to give a shout out to a company called Plenary, Pleneri. They're an interesting company that I've started doing some work with through my work at the Manufacturing Solutions Center, but they are using artificial intelligence to help clothing designers bring their ideas to life by connecting them to pattern makers, suppliers, and other resources, or working on an app that will allow designers to do all this. They allow designers to create what's called a tech pack, which really has all the materials, bill of materials, specifications of products, allows people to produce it through their app into a digital format that can be transferred to a digital manufacturer, which allows them to manufacture in much smaller quantities. So as opposed to going out and ordering a minimum quantity of maybe 500 units of today's trendy color, they could order 15 units and do it in a way to really reduce waste and get it made here in the United States much more efficiently and effectively than having to go overseas to get it done. So that's the small business that I think you should be checking out. They're called Plenary. If you go to www.pleneri.com, you can learn a lot more about them. So check them out. If you have a suggestion for our Entrepreneur Exchange Small Business of the Month, you can email them to us at exchange@themesh.tv. We appreciate your input on that. We want to thank Ruth and John for joining us today. You guys have been great.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you
was
so
fantastic.
much for having
It was
us.
fun.
Good luck.
We want to thank the Mesh Podcast Network for hosting us. You can check out the stable of podcasts on the Mesh Network at themesh.tv. Enjoy the rest of your summer. Try to stay cool out there. And we look forward to talking with you again next month.
Take care.